Yo, what's up, guys? Today we have another episode of Enneagram, trying to understand the different types that's within us, like the gut type, heart type, and the head type. In the previous two episodes, we spoke about no, yeah, we spoke about how Enneagram is and how what the structure is and how it works. And after that, we spoke about the gut type. Today, we are going to understand the heart type with Suzanne. Hey,
Hey, great to be here again. Thank you so
yeah.
much.
So with the heart, I think I have friends who are head type and I have friends who are gut type. But I personally know no one that's a heart type. And the way you talk about heart type, it makes me think that it's all about connection. But
Mhm.
I personally don't understand because I'm a seven, so I'm a head type, right?
Yeah.
So I don't
So
understand what the need is.
so again, there's 3 centers of intelligence in the Enneagram,
Yeah.
and these intelligence centers are very important in that they include gifts and talents that direct what we call the lens of perception, the way we perceive the world, the way we receive it, and what we project onto the world. And it organizes our focus of attention. So if someone says to you, "Oh, you're a heart type on the Enneagram," it means that you're either a type 2, 3, or 4. It means that you're directing dominant center of intelligence, the center of intelligence that's filtering the world for you predominantly. And it's got a lens of perception that has a wisdom around connection,
Mm-hmm.
my being able to belong to the tribe, my human tribe, because I'm valued, because I'm approved of, because people like me, because I'm relating to other human beings. There's a filter around the heart. There's an intelligence around the heart that's measuring how
Mm-hmm.
we're doing with others. It's measuring our value in the eyes of others. It's measuring if we're liked. It's measuring if we're desired. It's measuring if we're wanted. It's measuring if we're approved of. It's measuring kind of our reputation with others. And why is this important? Because on a survival level, the heart is protecting us from being disliked, from being completely isolated and on our own,
Mm-hmm.
from being thrown from the tribe and eaten by a predator because we've been banished or exiled. The heart is registering data that makes sure I'm liked, I'm wanted, I'm approved of, I'm valuable, I'm accepted,
Mm-hmm.
I'm desired,
Yeah.
I am seen well by others, I am connected to others and in a way that will ensure my survival, and it's protecting us from being alone. Now, I wanna emphasize this because all 9 types and through all the coaching I do, when you get to the very bottom of our human condition, the greatest fear in 9 different ways is being completely alone, banished,
Mm-hmm.
exiled, annihilated, completely unwanted, thrown away, out there and utterly abandoned is terror for all 9 types. And I wanna refer to the Japanese symbol, kanji symbol for humanity, for human, and it's one stick leaning on another stick. How brilliant is that? Built into their written language is the notion that man cannot live alone. We'd only survive together, connected to others, part of the tribe, belonging, which is also part of the gut instinct because it covers my territory. I belong to a particular territory, clan, or group. But the
Mm-hmm.
heart is actually measuring through the reference of others. This is important through how I'm seen by others, if it's acceptable or not. So we all humans, all 9 Enneagram types, of course, have a heart.
Yeah.
So we're all registering this data to some degree. But
Yeah.
to a heart type, this measurement, these calculations, this registration of self is everything. And when there is something that's off in what the heart type is picking up, it creates grief, sadness, total distress, all the way to panic, all the way to kind of a hysterical experience of myself when I go into full blown, "Oh my god, there's nobody here. Oh my god, I'm alone. Oh my god." Like that feeling when we are utterly threatened because of aloneness, because
Mhm.
of disconnect. So I'll flip you to an infant now laying in a crib. Infants have all kinds of experiences of terror because they're so dependent. They can't even go to the bathroom by themselves. I mean, they can't get up and go to the bathroom. They can't even
Yeah.
move their head. When we're born, we can't even lift our head. Can you imagine how
Yeah.
helpless we are? So
Yeah.
the only way to get our needs met to survive, right, is through connection to another human. So all 9 Enneagram types know that we need to be connected.
Mhm.
Laying in a crib and you're screaming because you're hungry, you're thirsty, your head hurts, something. You're screaming for assistance, for
Mhm.
care, for nurturance, for warmth, for something, and nobody shows up. Nobody comes. You're one of those poor moms that has read that book that says, "Don't go when they cry. You're spoiling the child and it's manipulating you." If you're one of these people that has read that book and you stand outside that door and don't go to that infant when it's crying, you're causing cataclysmic damage to its self systems development. If that infant is a heart type, it's absolutely catastrophic because that little heart type is reaching for connection, and the panic and distress and despair that comes when that connection is not met is incredibly damaging. And depending
Yeah.
on the severity of these breaks in connection in this person's childhood, this is the beginnings of very low level of developmental well-being, what the American Psychology Association is going to probably categorize you as a borderline later on because you're so emotionally dysregulated because the fear of abandonment and being alone is literally terrorizing to the point where you're barely functioning as an adult.
Mhm.
So to go back to infancy, all 9 types absolutely know we have to be connected to survive, and then you get a heightened sensitivity to this connection and disturbances to this connection in heart types is my belief, and I share this with many of the other Enneagram teachers in the field, that the heart types really suffer when that connection is not met properly because they already have an incredible radar, an incredible sensitivity to who I am and its dependency on the response from others. Type 2, type 3, type 4.
So that's interesting. That's interesting. So in the beginning, you spoke about survival. So what I'm understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that all the three centers of intelligence it's intelligent because it's using a specific way to ensure its survival. And
Absolutely.
and in this case, what a heart type is doing is making sure the other person likes them so that that ensures their survival. The connection with the other people ensures their survival.
It's the intelligence around connection as critical to survival.
Yeah. So if someone loves me, of course I would be surviving because they love me, right? So they would ensure my survival and stuff like that. Is that what you're saying?
That's the base organization of the 3 centers of intelligence, and in this case, the reason for being the wisdom of the heart. What is the heart center of intelligence doing for us? Like, why do we have it?
Yeah.
What does it give us? What's the benefit of it? What is it? What's it scanning for in the environment that is going to ensure my human survival? Yeah, absolutely. So survival as an absolute fundamental priority is always first. Second to survival is quality of life. So our personality, our Enneagram type structures is always doing 2 things, but the first thing is absolute survival, and the second thing is a quality of life. David Daniels used to call it satisfying life. It's how do I pursue
Yeah.
getting my needs met in the world and organizing myself in such a way that I am lovable, purposeful, desired, respected, honored, you know,
Yeah.
this is quality of life. And so each of our temperaments, each of our Enneagram types is organizing itself around bringing its essential qualities into the world so that I'm loved, God willing, that I'm
Yeah.
acceptable, that I belong, that I have something to say, that I'm respected, right? That's the secondary aspect of our personality, is doing that work, surviving against threat and surviving the fear of, or it's just the fear of not having a quality life, the fear of not having anything to contribute, the fear of being a total nothing in this world.
Hmm.
Personality is trying to prevent that as best
So,
it.
so would you say, from my understanding, is that first a survival, and what the quality of life is doing is ensuring the survival of others in a way, in the way it best knows how, the other person knows how.
Sure, well, it's my pursuit toward being a lovable, respected, impressive human where I can offer something that will ensure that I'm part of mankind, that I belong here, that I'm worthy of this beautiful, blissful juju thing called love, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like that's like the golden elixir of being here as
Hmm.
long as I survive.
Yeah,
The moment I'm faced with a bear
yeah.
or a
Of
tiger,
course.
I'm not thinking about how lovable I am
Yeah,
at
yeah,
all. I'm in a totally survival reflex. That's the first priority, is how to survive. So it's the same thing when you look at, we get a virus or a flu or
yeah. Hmm.
something like that, and the body will heat itself to extreme temperatures to kill the
Yeah,
virus. Fever,
yeah,
right? And when we have children, we all know that if that fever goes too high, it'll damage the brain,
yeah.
but it'll survive. So we will literally survive first, but whoops, your fever was 109 degrees and the brain's damaged, but you're alive. So
Yeah.
sometimes survival will interrupt quality of life, but we're surviving. So survival is priority for the organism. And second to that is quality of life,
What's
quality.
what Yeah, what ensures a high quality? Because this is funny because recently this is song from like a very kid show, okay? I think it's called The Bear and the something, and the main character is like a small blue mouse called Tata, okay? And the starter mouse sings this song because the starter is trying to understand who am I and who am I is the question there, something like that. And it's saying, "Oh, what is my dream?" And it says, "Oh, I have a dream. I want a huge cheese." And then the bear asks the mouse, "Oh, would you be happy then?" He would be like, "Now I think about it, I wouldn't be happy. Even though I should say I'm content, I'm not content. I want more. And what I want now is I want cheese for all the mouses." And once if that's there, then I would be happy, and then my quality of life would be at the highest, is the mouse's perspective. And for me that's interesting because of course absurd, right? Like what would more cheese do? Is how is more cheese meaningful, from like a human perspective? But from the mouse's perspective, is ensuring that, oh, other people are getting to experience the kind of love of life that I'm able to experience now. That's what it's trying to do, right? Oh, I like cheese. My quality of life is amazing. But he can see that now the dissonance is there. Oh, other people are not experiencing the same quality of life that I'm experiencing. So how can I make it so that other people's quality of life also rises?
Hmm.
No. Isn't that what
Well, you've asked a great question. And so let's just put survival over here in the
yeah,
closet for a moment. Let's move to quality of life.
yeah,
So what makes me lovable? What keeps me surviving? But what
yeah,
makes me lovable? What makes me worthy? What ensures I belong?
yeah.
So 9 Enneagram types have a different story
Oh.
about what they need. What makes me valuable? What makes me worthy? What kind of lovable quality do I have to offer here? So I go inside, I'm a type 8. Oh, I'm strong. I'm never weak. I'm powerful. I get it done. I'm direct. I'm the truth master. Okay, so this is in the spiritual essence of the type 8 temperamental structure.
Mm.
Those really are qualities that this temperament is imbued with. From the spiritual perspective of the Enneagram, we call it the holy ideas. We are some
That's nice.
beautiful reflection of light from these different holy ideas. So as we get organized, this is a little on the spiritual side, as we get
Yeah.
organized from wherever we come from down into a neurobiological meat body on this
Mm.
planet, this spinning ball in black space, right? Here we are.
Yeah.
And I'm down in this kind of dense environment. Something is informing the organization of me that's not just neurobiological. There's a spiritual component of me, and this is my higher self. And it's something I have access to. I kind of know something about me. It's not logical. It's an intrinsic awareness, a connection to some qualities within me. So for instance, as I come into the world, and I'm around 4 years old and my personality is organizing, I
Yeah.
am not randomly picking attributes out of the sky to
Uh,
be.
yeah.
I mean, as I was a little type 1 child, I was, teaching school in my room to all my stuffed animals, and everything in my room was organized a certain way. And I like to, I kept reorganizing my parents' house for them because it like, was better that way. And
Yeah.
that wasn't my parents' parenting style. It was something in me that I had an urge and an impulse to bring this from me into the world. So, what did I see as what would make me lovable? I'm going to offer up the fact that I can take chaos and turn it into something really structured. I mean, I was always taking chaos and distilling it into something better, right?
Yeah.
So, all 9 types have a sense of the gift. There's an aptitude, there's an inclination, there are
Yeah.
impulses that are already there that drive you toward particular outwards expressions of self. Dan
Yeah.
Siegel calls these neural patterns, propensities, and proclivities that are built into the central nervous system.
Damn, that's a complicated name.
It's a big mouthful. It's the way that we will naturally organize our adaptive strategies. Our
Mm-hmm.
adapting to the environment is gonna be organized here. The solution to dealing with my environment is here. It's not out here. It's like, whoa. So
True.
what makes me lovable as a type 1? Well, as a little girl, I'm lining up my friends at school in a straight line, and I'm cleaning up the pencil droppings on the floor from my teacher, and I'm the good girl.
Yeah.
And that made me feel really good, and I had an aptitude. I just knew how to do that. My brother's totally different, you know? So
Says that with a huge sigh. Ah.
he's very different in a beautiful way, but completely different, you know?
Uh,
So, it's
I'm the guy who puts a pencil sharpening in the floor so that now you can feel good, see?
that's right, you're like, "Oh, whoops. I'm outta
Oops,
here."
no one saw this, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So that's what each one of us has a perspective, a lens of perception that comes from our center of intelligence and our type as to what I'm gonna look for in the world and what I'm gonna bring to the world. What I have to bring, I'm also wanting to meet it here. I'm wanting to find organization here. I'm wanting to find good structure here. I'm wanting to find good rules that I can buy into and that I can honor and respect that I know are going to work well for people. As a child, if I was in a classroom that was too chaotic and the teacher didn't have control, I would go right to the principal and demand that I be in a different class. I didn't
what?
like things that were
Whoa.
out of I did. And my mother, God bless her, honored this 5-year-old that said, "I'm not going back to school because that teacher is disorganized. She doesn't speak properly, and I won't be in that class." And this teacher, just didn't have a commanding presence, so kids were flying all over and jumping into the middle of the room, and everybody was talking at the same time, and I wanted nothing to do with that classroom.
Mm,
So that was there inside of me, and that's the way I was that was the way I wanted to was able to contribute to the world, but I was also looking for that in the world. 4s are looking for a reflection of themselves in the world. 8s are looking for truthful, direct, people that are going to push back, and exactly as the 8 is going to treat people, they want to meet that. So we're looking to receive the self in the world. At the same time, we're going to offer these aptitudes, gift, and talents, these proclivities. Type 7, you want someone that can meet you in the mind and can think of creative things you can have good
Yeah.
conversation with, but someone's not going to get stuck in all this, you know,
Yeah.
conversations that are boring and going nowhere. And,
Yeah.
looking for that also. We're looking for what we are able to bring. And that's all part of what makes me lovable, what I find worthy of love. What makes me lovable, what I find worthy of my love, right? It's going
Yeah.
like that.
The type structure. So just to go back, so like when you're a little girl, so you're organizing to make things better, but you're making things better. So what criteria are you organizing things with? Are you making things better with the perspective of how would this make another person's life easier, or are you making this, or are you organizing this with the perspective of does it look aesthetically pleasing, or are you organizing, this
This
with
is a
the
great question. Now we're going to get into the actual fundamental workings of the types. This is a super question. It's going to tie back to your mouse who wanted the cheese and wanted cheese to everybody.
yeah, yeah,
So as a child, all I know is that when things are not organized properly, I get I get this angst, I get tight,
yeah,
get uncomfortable. I actually get irritated.
mhm,
I get frustrated. So, as a 5-year-old who refused to go back to kindergarten because the teacher was too disorganized, I didn't know that I was trying to make it better for anybody else. The discomfort in my body was too high.
mhm,
And at 5 years old, I was able to articulate what I thought was wrong, which I find so
yeah,
fun. But if you really listen to all children, they'll tell you. Children are really amazing. So now my parents' home, and I'm from Canada, so in the winter, everybody had snow boots, and they'd come in through the door, and everybody would just kinda throw their snow boots in a pile, and they'd be a big pile by the door, and I
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
like that. So, to me, I felt better when I looked over at the door and the boots were all lined up. I felt better in the world. And when I look over in the corner, I see this big pile of boots, and some of them have muck on the bottom, and it's getting on the floor, and
it's not
I'm un
clean.
I'm uncomfortable. Yeah, it's yeah. So, and I'm like this at 5 years old. Ooh. So, I go
Yeah,
over and
yeah,
I mobilize and I just put them all together, and I have the 2 black ones together, 2 white ones together, and I just line them up, and then I feel better. And as a type 1, it actually had nothing to do with pleasing my parents. My parents didn't care
yeah,
about what's in the corner. Um, did I assume at that age that but would it make it easier for people to find their boots? No, but that was a result,
yeah,
right? So it had a positive impact that I don't remember when people came to put their boots on, if they were like, "Oh, look at this." I don't remember
yeah,
anything like
yeah,
that around
yeah,
getting approval. I just know that once they were lined up, I I felt better. It's
yeah,
aesthetically more pleasing to me, absolutely, but the driver was the frustration. So
yeah,
the
I understand that.
this is the somatic enneagram that I'm talking about right now, which is the beautiful work of Marion Gilbert, where we actually the impulses and compulsions of our type structure can be felt in the body. This is the felt sense perception, meaning if you really look at what's happening to all of us, the body is following the lens of perception. It's following the focus of attention. It's following the gift. It follows who I have to be in the world and who I can't be in
Yeah,
the world. Body is following it all. So as we learn to experience what's going on in our body, when you talk to type ones, it's I can't relax. There's no peace here. There's
yeah,
this tightness or frustration. If I see something that's not right and I don't fix it, it's so irritating.
mm,
So it starts with my own irritation. A heart type, a
yeah,
type 2, 3, or 4 finds out someone doesn't like them. they now are out of peace. They are uncomfortable.
Mhm.
It starts to agitate them. Type 5, 6, or 7, you're in a situation where somebody's behaving really badly and people could get hurt and it's just not a safe environment. 5, 6, and 7s can't relax. They're on high alert, hypervigilance, the adrenaline starts. Do I need to get out of here? Do I need to say something? Does somebody need to take care of this? So each of the centers of intelligence have a level of agitation that's very sensitive to particular incoming data. That makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. What I'm like struggling to understand is I'm struggling to understand what organizing means in an animalistic way. Because fixing a painting or putting a booth together, we can understand that. But let's talk about a more complicated situation where you feel like you want to organize something.
Mhm.
So I'm not saying that you're consciously thinking that, oh, I want you instinctively know how to organize. But how do you know that the final image that you have of what the organized picture look is the right image? Why does that feel right? Like how is that image feeling right to you? Like, what criteria is that happen is what I'm asking.
Incredible question. Okay, let me just ponder this for a
Yeah,
second.
yeah,
How, as a child, this is the $1,000,000 question of how the
yeah,
reward system is wired into type structure. And I'm gonna give you a spiritual answer.
yeah, sure.
This is in the spiritual design. This is the contribution to humanity, my gift. There's a
Mhm,
I came in with a wisdom. I came in with a natural orientation toward distilling chaos into structure. So
mhm,
type 1s, I mean, actually 8, 9, and 1, but particularly type 1 is very sensitive to spatial arrangement. So
mhm,
where are things in space? And this is the body type. I'm a body type. Where are things in space? So, and I'm a graphic designer. So how far is that text to that text? How far is the graphic from the other graphic? How is this anchored? I mean, it's like the space between things
mm,
is something I have an aptitude for, and I've always had an aptitude for it. I mean, it can go all the way back. It was always there. How did I get that? I think it's a spiritual
yeah,
answer.
that
I think it's imbued into what informed the development of my particular temperament.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But now I think I understand a little bit more because you said the spatial awareness is how I think
Mhm.
you're organizing. Because I think
Yeah,
you're more sensitive to like the asymmetry around the spatial structures
exactly.
compared
That's
to
exactly right.
other types, compared to at least me, I would say.
So that spatial wisdom
Yeah.
can can get mobilized into organizing things in space. Richard Rohr says, watch a type 1 walk into the room and they'll start rearranging the chairs. And it's true. Some chairs are too close together, some are farther apart. We start we start spacing things evenly. We like
Mm-hmm.
that. There's a wisdom there. There's a talent. There's an absolute
Yeah.
talent. I'm walking into someone's house and they've got I can't figure out why they would put 3 paintings on the wall in that the way they've organized them, 2 over here, and this is the wrong shape painting for that couch, and I mean, I see it like that fast, and
Yeah.
I get a body irritation.
Yeah.
It's so where does the wisdom come as far as it would look better?
Yeah. I
I
think the
think
spatial awareness, right, is interesting
it's
to
a
me.
spatial sensitivity, and I think it's an inherent gift because nobody taught me
Yeah.
that as a small person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think
Um,
for me, it would be like just being aware of the possibilities that could happen and
mhm.
what possibilities could happen in the future. And understanding different perspective is something I'm naturally just good at. I think it's a gift there. Yeah. It's just interesting to like see, okay, what am I using to then? I think that could also help with people understanding their type pattern, right?
Yeah,
Understanding what gift is causing an emotional reaction within them.
I absolutely. You said
Yeah.
that beautifully. And the word possibility is within the gift of type 7. You see
Yeah.
possibility, you think in possibilities, things are multi-tiered, multi-leveled, and it's not necessarily linear in type 7. You
Okay.
see many things at one time. You see how
Hmm.
this relates to that, how that relates to that, and it's all here, and your mind is sorting a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely. absolutely. That is an innate proclivity. It's a
Oh,
gift.
that's nice. Okay, now let's go back to like the heart types. And I had another question about the heart types that you were initially talking about. A
Yeah.
huge tangent, but going back, right? Um, so you're saying heart type is sensitive to, or they have a understanding of what other people feel about them, or what is the social standing between them versus like other people around them, right? Is what
Mhm,
I'm
mhm.
understanding. So now does this gift also gives them a talent for then understanding what is the social distance between like another two person? Let's say there is like another person who's a heart type. Would they be aware of our social standing, like our relationship, or are they sensitive like, you know,
Yeah,
the
yeah, this is another great question. Prim, you are so questions are so good. Um, so first, let me start by defining the 3 heart types,
yeah,
and some of what you're aiming at can be impacted by the subtype, what we call subtypes or the 3 instinctual drives, but I'll touch on that lightly. But to go back to the heart types, type 2 is called the giver or the helper.
yeah.
Type 3 is called the performer, the achiever, and type 4 is called the individualist or the romantic. So there's names on the Enneagram types to kind of point at some qualities, although they could be very misleading. But
Mm,
let me start here. Type 2 is I am because I can feel you.
okay.
Type 3 is I am because I don't feel. I can put my feelings in a box. And type 4 is I am because I feel me. So type 2, the emotional energy goes out toward others. Type 3, the emotional energy gets suppressed so that I can perform and achieve things because I'm a competency person. And type 4, all the emotional energy goes in toward me. How do I feel? How did this impact me? So now going back to your little fellow with the cheese, I'd like some cheese. I like a big piece of cheese. Okay, so first he's gonna set up his own survival, which is kinda cool. Well, do you want anything else? Well, I really like cheese for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, the first Enneagram type that might have that wired into their hearts, into their psyche, into their spirit
Mm-hmm.
is gonna be type 2,
Okay. Okay.
okay? The giver, the helper. Type 9, who
Interesting.
wants harmony for everybody. So if I have cheese and if everyone else has cheese, everything will be
Mm-hmm.
peaceful and beautiful. Okay, so type
Okay.
9 could automatically do that. And I will dare say type 7 also, because if I'm happy and I have cheese, everybody else has cheese, they'll be happy too. And then we'll
Yeah.
all live happily ever after. So
Yeah.
2, 9, and 7, which are called the positive reframing types, for 3 different reasons might have wanted the whole world to have cheese, imbued in their natural inclination, in the way they're wired to bring certain gifts to the world.
Okay.
But in the heart type, in the heart center of intelligence, it would have been type 2. In the body center of intelligence, it would have been type 9 that could have
Okay.
sent that. And then in the head center of intelligence, it might have been type 7 to say that.
Yeah.
As a tendency, would could all 9 types have come up with that offering?
Sure.
Yeah, especially if they're extremely altruistic and psychologically healthy, but 7, 2, and 9 would have had a real innate tenderness around that, a sensitivity to offering that up pretty fast as one of the first things out of their mouth.
Yeah. Can you talk slowly again? Type 2, type 7, and type 9 says the same thing. But what is the reasons again? Can you tell that in like a different words?
So jumping ahead of myself a little bit, there are many look-alike, what's called look-alike structures in the Enneagram, look-alike types. We call this the harmonics, meaning these 3 types harmonize in some way. And there's many different ways we slice up the Enneagram for different reasons to see the Enneagram and see temperamental structure
Mm-hmm.
as they're similar and as they're different. In this case, it's called the harmonics. And the harmonics tell us how the type structure behaves under stress or discomfort or when its needs are not getting met, or when it wants to bring something in that it's doesn't have here in the world yet. And so 2s and 7s and 9s are called the positive reframing, positive outlook types.
Mhm.
2, 7, and 9 want everything nice and
Yeah.
kind and happy and lovely and sweet and um they just want to make everything nice.
Yeah.
Why look on the bad side when you can look on the good side? And 7 and 9 and 2 do the positive outlook 3 different ways in their temperament,
Mhm.
but they tend to look alike because they have this positive, happy, sweet,
Yeah.
no conflict avoidant, just let's get along with everybody. Let's not make trouble. Let's just figure it out. Let's just make this fun. Let's just,
Yeah.
so that's why they look alike. So that's why when you said, I have cheese now, I want everybody else to have cheese,
Yeah.
7, 9, and 2 would have a kind of a natural proclivity for going there for three different reasons. Three different reasons, but they would have a tendency, an easy tendency, kind of an innate tendency to see the world like that, to want that
Okay.
for and those are called the harmonics, and we can get into a whole discussion about the harmonics at another time because
Another episode, guys.
that's another
Harmonics.
episode, 279, 135, 468. Those are the 3 triad
So,
groupings. They all mean
so
something really valuable.
okay. So if you actually show me that chart that you showed earlier to me, does the line connect so to like show the harmonics or what?
No, no, that wasn't no, that was called the harmony triads, which is actually
Uh,
object relations. That's something completely different. So we could
oh,
do a
so
whole one on that. We'll have to do
so
a
that's a
whole
different chart. It's not that Enneagram. No, no, that's a different. Okay, go, go, go.
So the harmonics are very different than the harmony triads, which really are what's called object relations. They're completely
Mm,
different. Yeah. But they both use the word harmony, which is a little confusing.
yeah,
Harmonics and harmony, it gets really confusing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I can
They're
see
very
that.
different. Think about object relations and harmony triad, harmonics.
Yeah,
Object
harmonics.
relations and harmonics. Yeah.
Okay.
Lookalikes. I call them lookalikes.
Yeah. So
Relations and lookalike types.
so let's talk about two then, because you said two is just like I want to give because I that's what I want to do,
I'm the
right?
giver, I'm the helper. I am because I feel you. I am because I take care of you. I am because I take care of your needs. I take care of your wants. I nurture you. And then from the gratitude and appreciation that comes back from you, I am. I even know
Mm,
what you need before you know what you need. Sometimes
mm,
I actually jump forward and I start satisfying your needs and you haven't even asked me. And
mm,
I can become very prideful about this, that I know what you need before you know what you need. And the pride can drive me to do things that I'm not being asked to do. And then sometimes people get frustrated with me because they feel really intruded upon and they feel that I've been a little bit invasive, but I was just trying to help. I
yeah.
was offering my gift. My gift is my lens of perception is I'm scanning people to see what they need. I literally this data is just coming at me. She needs water, she needs to sit down, she needs a chair. I mean, it's like a floodgate for 2s. Like,
Um,
and the energy moves forward towards satisfying the needs of others and the help that others needs. And when someone's afraid to ask for help, like they just have this radar, they know. So you
mhm,
can imagine as I talk about this, how exhausting that would be.
yeah.
Because if I see a need that someone has and I don't jump up to fulfill it,
Mhm,
I get filled with guilt. How mean of me. How selfish of me. I knew they needed water and I just sat here and didn't get it. It was my responsibility to get the water because I knew that they needed the water. They didn't ask me to get the water, but I knew they needed the water. So it gets the impulse, the urge to satisfy what I'm picking up in the field is very strong. And the guilt when I don't is debilitating.
mm,
That's type 2. And the flip side of this is I give, I give, I give. I took care of you. I give. I stepped out of the way. I went out of my way. And as the time goes on, even though I haven't been asked to do all these things, I'm starting to wonder They didn't even thank me. They even
Yeah.
appreciate me. So the resentment can build in type 2 that I am because I'm doing all these things for you, but I only am if it comes back in the form of gratitude and appreciation. If I don't get that, I start to lose my sense of who I am. I start to get angry. I start to get resentful. So
Taken
this
for
is
granted.
type 2. Yeah. The pride drives me. I'm
Yeah.
such a good person. I do all these things for everybody. And the deep, deep sorrow happens when my needs are not getting met at all, no matter what I do for others. And there's a very, very deep grief into and a despair that if I didn't do all these things for everybody, nobody would bring the love to me.
Yeah.
It would never come. I would be nothing. I would be invisible if I wasn't doing all this. No one would even see me here. They would
Mm-hmm.
just bypass me.
Yeah.
And that is so painful for type 2. So I will be loved if I give, put myself in front of people, I kind of ingratiate myself to people in order to establish my sense of self. So it's wired
Interesting.
like that. So it's wired.
Interesting. So,
That's
so
type 2.
so what you're saying is they need to feel gratitude, not actually, because there are like five love languages, right? And only one of them is like words of affirmation, right? So it's not like, so you're saying all five love languages can work on them. They would have their own love language, but the result of the love language would be that they would feel gratitude, is what you're saying.
So the 5 love languages, there is a connection between our Enneagram type and what type of love language bring forward, and also
Uh-huh.
the instinct, our
Mm-hmm.
driving and dominant instinct plays a role in this as well. So your question about type 2 is really interesting. A really incredible question here because the sense of self is determined by being appreciated,
Like
by
literally.
literally by getting I'm going to get my needs met because I've given to you. And there's a secret part of me that's like, okay, I took you out for ice cream last week. You're going to take me out for ice cream this week? It's really hidden, right? So the resentment is building because people don't know that the 2 is organizing their
Mm.
way of being in the world by reciprocity, divine
Yeah.
reciprocity. I give to you, you give to me. It flows. Like the 2s do have a wisdom, right, in the heart around
Yeah.
we give and then we receive and it flows like this. But what happens is I overgive, I give through a compulsion to not experience this horrible guilt that bombards me if I don't give. And then if I don't get the appreciation coming back, I suffer. But here's the catch: an unaware type 2 who hasn't done any self work, the appreciation comes back and I really don't receive it. It kind of resets every day. I can't take it in because the compulsion to give and not live with the guilt is greater than actually
Uh,
acknowledging that I was appreciated. So can
damn.
they see the appreciation and can they receive the appreciation in such a way that it negates the resentment building? And here's the real catch. Can the type 2 start giving from free will, autonomous, loving kindness, and free will, where I am free to give? I've given from my own volition. It was not a compulsion to run from guilt. It was an offering, and I expect nothing back. This is when 2s are free.
No
The whole
expectation of the outcome.
yeah. So they free themselves.
Mm.
When we give from free will, when we love from free will, when we expect nothing back, it is true altruism. That's when type 2 is liberated from the compulsion driven by running from guilt, the shame and guilt of not
Yeah.
giving, and the terror that if I don't give, love will never come to me. That is at the deepest, darkest, saddest place in type 2. No love will come my way. It'll be like I don't exist.
Mm. Interesting.
Nobody takes care of my needs. I take care of
Yeah.
everybody's needs. Nobody takes care of my needs. If I didn't take care of your needs, you never even would have thought of me. That's the cry of the soul of type 2.
So if type 2 is doing so much for another person, how could another person reciprocate back to the same intensity? So I don't understand.
Brilliant question. And oftentimes they can't and they don't because you've got 9 other Enneagram types here. And
Yeah.
so you've got a, yeah, right?
Yeah.
You've got a type that goes, I didn't ask you to do that. Now you
Yeah.
want to thanks. Oh, it creates all kinds of problems in their life. And that it doesn't come back with the same intensity, Prem, is a really, really insightful statement. It
Yeah.
can't. We can never match another person's compulsion.
Yeah. Like I'm thinking if I was in this position as type 2, I could give back, make them happy, like, maybe once a week or once in 2 weeks, but I can never like give back if this person's helping me every day. You know what I mean?
That's
It's
right. It's
it's
kind of a
like
catch it's a catch-22, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And all 9 types set themselves up for the failure of the compulsion. The compulsion, when we're driven by compulsion rather than the gift of the holy idea, the gift of the spirit that I have to offer, when we're actually working from compulsion, it's never received by others well. It'll
Mm,
never satiate the need here to be satisfied. It'll reset every day. The need for the positive reference is resets every day. It resets every day. I straightened those shoes as a little girl in Canada, and the very next day, the shoes are a pile again. I got to do it again. It never relaxed the angst.
mm,
So the compulsion doesn't fix it. It's in the moment, in the moment. It's like a reflex.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I'm giving, I'm giving, I'm giving, and I've given to the point where this person can't even catch up,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Basically.
They owe me so much now they can't catch up.
Yeah,
So it creates an imbalance in the relationship, and
yeah. It's like
never
American dad.
it's like a huge debt.
Yeah.
But the 2 and an unhealthy 2, the pridefulness when the debt gets big, gets really big. And this feeling of,
You owe me a lot.
my time's coming. And then the 2 says, "Hey, I've got to move next weekend. I don't have a moving truck, and I don't know. I don't know what to do." It's really hard for them to ask for help at all, but they kind of dump a dilemma. And the person said, "Hey, I'm so sorry. I'm busy." "You're busy?" And they're waiting for
Yeah.
them to say, "Hey, I'll come help you." And that's not coming. So can you imagine what's happening to the 2?
Yeah.
They don't usually ask directly for help, but they sort of come out with a little dilemma and they're kind of waiting. And the other person is oblivious. It's
Yeah.
like, "No, no, sorry, I'm working, I wish I could help you, I'm sorry.
The
I don't
audacity.
realize I've got this huge debt built up." And then, and the 2s, if they get pushed over and over and over again in that way, they can finally explode, which was where is that line from 2 to 8, and they finally just explode in a big, big expressive outcry. "I did so much for you, and you can't even help me on this one thing." That's usually the cry that comes out of a 2 after a lot of resentment builds up over time. And so often the target is completely oblivious. They've just been
Hmm.
receiving and receiving and receiving, thinking the tool was working from free will.
Yeah.
They haven't been. So the
Hmm.
liberation of type 2 is to get to a place of free will. I'm responsible for all my choices. If I decide to give to someone, I give it freely, autonomously, and with grace through true altruism. And the hook that I have lived with as a wired up type 2, I've learned to relax that resentment and that expectation. Now I'm free.
Mm.
Now I can really actually give and get high off the giving rather getting high off the appreciation.
Yeah, I think uh so they're just giving without the other person asking. I think, yeah, So what happens? So is it like the same intensity if, like, say, I don't ask for help? Because I usually don't ask for help with people, you know. If people help me, it's great. When I ask, like, you know, sure, but I don't ask for like huge favors. You know what I mean? If someone's doing huge favors, like, great, I would be grateful and I would try to like give back if I could. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But the difference I'm trying to like understand is if they are if what is the relationship with someone who's independent versus someone who's dependent? Someone who's dependent, I actually need you to help me versus I don't need you to help me, but if you're helping, that's fine. So
So
would
I
they have the
wanna
same level of resentment for the team, or will we?
Yeah, because the resentment is building around the compulsive self. But
Mm,
I wanna add to this that
yeah,
2s don't only give when they're not asked. If you ever ask a 2 for help, they will
yeah,
never say no. So, they will
okay.
they will never say no. Saying no makes them feel selfish and mean, so they'll never say no, but they'll also start filling in your needs even when you're not asked, so they do both. So, um, 2s can often end up in relationship with takers, with people that are more oriented to receive.
Yeah,
Uh,
makes sense.
that happens often, and, um when you get anything that's out of balance, so this is again, I'm gonna lean into David Daniels' law of reciprocity here. Giving and receiving has to be a balanced flow
Yeah.
where giving is received and the receiving is received and the giving is given. Between 2 people, having it be in balance is really healthy, and that is natural cosmic law of reciprocity. Twos come in with wisdom of this law of reciprocity, but somehow they get disconnected from it. And then the ego system, the Enneagram type of 2, tries to remanufacture the law of reciprocity by overgiving, is the
Mhm,
attempt to recreate it. But it ends up compulsive, it ends up getting attached to expectation. The
mhm,
reward system gets oriented toward being appreciated rather than the actual art of giving is the dopamine high, right? It makes me
mhm,
feel really good. And it's for them to loosen their grip on being appreciated as their identity. So, yeah, some Enneagram types are more prone to being more self-reliant or independent, and other Enneagram types are more prone to being responsive and compliant to others. So,
yeah,
always weighing in here and how the 2 types get together and what happens. Sevens can often be just oblivious to, um, someone over giving to you. It's like, "Hey, hey, great, thanks." Sevens are
yeah.
very autonomous, and 1, 4, 7, right? 1s are compliant, 4s are defiant, 7s are self-reliant. So that self-reliance is, "Hey, man, thanks," not thinking I need to "Be responsible for yourself, dude." It's kinda like that.
Thanks, dude. Really appreciate it. See ya.
That's right, you know?
Hey, the guy calls me back. Hey, I like just got it.
Yeah,
No, I'm just
exactly.
joking. Yeah.
So, when you and oftentimes 2s get pushed away, right? Because people start to catch on to the resentment, and it's like, "Hey, man, don't do anything for me. Just no," because you don't wanna get caught in the trap, and
Yeah.
then speaking of an unaware 2 who's just running the compulsion of the type, and they don't know what's happened, and, a lot of times they're too clingy, too needy, too much, "I'm just too much for people," so they start getting that
Mhm.
kind of, self-shaming that is very painful for them.
Mhm.
"You're too
Yeah.
needy, get away from me, why are you always trying to do stuff for me?" Stop. And that's like utter rejection, which is
Yeah.
torture for type 2, right? They're trying to
Crazy.
give to a not to avoid the rejection they already believe is gonna be there if they don't give. So now I'm getting rejected if I give, so it's
Mm.
cognitively so confusing for 2.
What
Emo
happens in what happens in like a volunteer setting where
Volunteer.
there's yeah, because they are just yeah, the entire job is just give, 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 and expect nothing in return basically. So if
Well,
you're
you gotta
volunteering,
know what Enneagram types are drawn to volunteerism, and
I don't know.
here we go to the instincts.
Okay.
The subtypes that really play a role. So the social subtype, you
Oh, the
Enneagram
instincts.
type. Mhm.
Mm-mm.
Social subtype, which, we'll talk about instincts at a different time, but the social subtype can be drawn to and prone to showing up as a volunteer because it's part of the
Uh,
community, part of the group, part of how I'm serving our collective survival. And it feels really good because we're all connected and
mhm,
I've got some status in the group and people see me as a volunteer and um and that's how I position myself well in my group structure.
mm. So it's like
Especially
a
if
social
volunteering
tool.
volunteering is being applauded,
Yeah,
the social
yeah,
subtype is like, "Oh, that's a good image for me.
yeah.
That's a good place for me. That'll ensure my survival. People see me as a
Mm.
good volunteer person, I'm
Oh,
contributing."
yeah. I think I'm lead social, right? According to you?
I
Maybe?
think I can't remember, did we say social?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it was social. Yes, I'm remembering now, yeah.
I think I'm self-preserve last. I think I'm SX middle. Is
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
yeah,
that makes sense. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. So people have a good image of me. I'm like, yeah, I can see that.
yeah.
That's what I do. Wait a minute, that's what I do. No.
Yeah,
Uh,
and that social 7 is the one that would have the greatest inclination to say, "Can everybody else have some cheese?" That's the social 7.
yeah. So
Yeah.
sometimes that cheese thing. Sometimes I just make sure other people have cheese so that I can have my cheese and have no one ask for my cheese. You know what I mean?
Right. If
I can
they're
have
happy,
a
I'm happy. Yeah,
if they are happy, so I can be happy guilt free. I don't have to be happy where a person is like, damn, that guy's happy and I'm not. You know what I mean?
so I love what you just shared because that self-orientation is what drives type 7. So
Mm,
really the true reason as a social 7 that I'm gonna give everybody out here cheese is because if you're all happy, I'm happy.
yeah.
Really
I
the
can
reason.
I can be happy and you guys won't like bother me, or I can be happy guilt free. I don't have to be like no strings attached. Oh, you're happy, I'm happy. Everyone has cheese. What's the problem? Let me have my cheese.
Yeah,
Right?
and I don't wanna give every one of you a piece of my cheese, so
Yeah,
I'm gonna
exactly.
order cheese from the universe.
Yeah. I'm gonna design a system such that everyone gets cheese. Cheese big enough as mine. Because I'm not gonna like split my big cheese into like have like one bite. What's the point then?
That's right.
Yeah. But I think a social too would be like, oh, I want to give the cheese because I want to like give. So take my cheese like that. Would they
So,
give something that is theirs? Like let's say they had cheese, would they give their cheese to others?
type 2.
Yeah.
Type 2 will give their cheese away.
Oh,
So I was
just
working
give
with a
their
man in yeah, I was working with a man in prison who was in Vietnam and they were escaping on a boat and he was 6 years old and his parents gave him a thing of water. "Don't let anybody see this water. This is your water." They only had so much water to survive the boat ride out of Vietnam. Well, he's a type 2. Guess what he did with
give
his
away
water?
the water.
He gave it away to someone who looked like they were gonna die. And he got in so much trouble from his parents and he risked his own life, but type 2 will absolutely go without for another.
Yeah, and the problem here that you're highlighting is that it's not that he's giving away his bottle because that's an altruistic thing to do. The image is good, but the motivation behind why he's giving away the bottle because of the discomfort in his body and him
It
giving away, right?
it felt wrong to not give it away, even at
Yeah.
5. Now, when we're young, before we hit the teen years, we're really in a lot of the divine aspects of self. We are really still in contact with our essential self,
Yeah.
and I'm sure that, and he did. I mean, in talking to him, giving that giving that away was his rightful relationship with self. Felt beautiful. It was the only choice he had in the way
Felt
that
good.
he was wired.
Mm.
Even if it meant getting in trouble by his attachment figures, which is amazing, actually, because to stay safe with our attachment figures, our mom and dad, or whoever it is raising you, to stay safe with those relationships is survival. And so look how strong the type structure is.
Yeah.
It's
Like
that
overriding.
it can override, absolutely. And well, again, to the point where you get in trouble with your attachment relationships. Yeah. Not always, but a little strong little soul like that. Yeah.
I know I'm not supposed to ask this, but I'm really curious now. So how did a type 2 end up in prison?
Ah, they steal for others.
Oh, like a Robin Hood?
called boosting. Yeah, it's like that. Yep.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. I was thinking,
Shoplifting for others. Oh my god, they're stealing blankets and baby stuff for women that their friends that don't have what they need. Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah. They're in
okay,
trouble a lot because they're taking care of others, serving others, doing favors for others. Yeah.
that's crazy.
Question. Great question. I'll tell you who
It,
you don't see a lot in prison is type 1. Very rare. That was the
it,
one type you don't see a lot in prison. That was kinda funny. I
well,
only saw
well,
2
well, I know my
2 of
type.
them.
Well, at least I know now my type one friends would never end up there. So that's good.
Hundreds of students, I think I had 2 or 3 type 1s.
Wow,
Yeah, yeah,
crazy. I think
yes.
they're just too smart to be in prison. I think the type one is actually bad. I think they would be like the cool bad. You know what I mean? The ones they show in movies. It was like organized structure or something like that. No?
Well, they can a very unhealthy type 1 has a big split in the personality. I'm so good on the surface, and then my shadow is really dark. This is,
Yeah.
that's a really big split, and that can happen to very deviant type 1s. Um, but yeah, the other type 1 was both of them were in, they were selling drugs, and both had a very successful selling drugs business, and both of them one of them had the best drugs, and he packaged it differently from everybody, and he had all these, like, built-in integrities in the way he sold it and the way he exchanged phone numbers, and, he just ran it like a type 1, which is hysterical. Um, but, he ended up getting caught. I think somebody snitched on him. Yeah, somebody
That
yeah,
is bound to
um,
happen though. It's like inevitable almost. So
yeah,
that's
but
interesting to like see. This is really interesting to understand because even because people so often judge others on their actions, but very rarely do someone actually question the motivations, what's driving them, and so which is actually I think what matters.
yeah, and I'd like to use the term the gift within us comes as an offering, a
Hmm.
contributory talent that's offered through free will and love,
Yeah.
or it turns into a compulsion, an
Yeah.
urge, an
Yeah.
impulse I cannot control no matter what, and if I do
Yeah.
somehow control it for a little while, the I call it the aftermath pain. If that type 2 decides to say no, in about an hour of saying no, the guilt, the self-attack, the managers of the personality start to come in. The controllers of the personality start to berate you. You're never gonna have another friend. They'll never do anything for you. You're gonna be alone all your life. You
Yeah.
start hearing you start hearing all this sort of the glue of the personality, the whole defense system starts to go crazy and tries to get you back on track to behave in the way that your wiring determines for your survival is best. So, working with the Enneagram is about working with that aftermath pain. We don't ever
Mm,
want to change the gift.
I like that.
We don't ever change the gift. Type 2, what would we do without type 2s on this planet? They're in hospice, they're nurses, they're caring for people that most of us couldn't even do that. They're giving
Mm,
water to someone who's dying. Like, what would we do without them on this planet? So the Enneagram is not about ever resisting or not doing your gift anymore. It's about being with the pain if you don't comply with your wiring, because you need to make a conscious choice in the moment that's for the higher good of all involved, and it's not just your compulsion.
yeah. That
That's
that
liberation.
yeah.
That's
That
why David
is
called it liberation psychology. How do I
like
offer my gift from free will, love, and grace, and not compulsion? Compulsion is only serving me.
yeah.
It can have that impact. Yeah, I mean, people could benefit maybe, but the compulsion is about serving my angst, serving my pain. It's not
Yeah.
always for the benefit of the other. As a matter of fact, it can get intrusive. It can get it can get completely negligent to the impact it's having on other people. Actually,
It's actually crazy. It's interesting as well. Do you feel I want to like go back to 3 and 4, but like last question because I'm really interested. Do you feel like spirituality, let's say like Buddhism or something, is like geared towards a specific type in Enneagram?
No. All 9 types are spiritually organized and
Yeah.
spiritually connected. However, type 4 tends to lean toward meaning making, finding meaning in this world, but it does tie to their initial gift, which is to come in to know my true face. This is the language of Russ Hudson. To come and learn my true original face. Who am I? Why am I here? What does that symbol mean? And how does that connect to what means something to me? And how do I take what's beautiful out here and bring it in? So they have kind of an inclination that looks very spiritual to the rest of us naturally.
Um,
So the way that they are designed to interact with the world can look like a spiritual bent
mm,
when they're in their compulsion.
it's crazy.
But all 9 types absolutely are spiritual and can become enlightened, spiritual, high functioning, highly self-aware, highly graceful humans. It's just the type 4, when compulsive, when unaware, can look very spiritual and can lend themselves to pursuing that as a way of finding themselves, because they come here to find themselves.
Yeah.
And they come here to help each one of us find our precious, unique self. They have the wisdom of we're all so precious, divinely unique. We all have something valuable to say, something to offer. What is that? This is the quest of 4. And they bring this to humanity as an offering. They bring this kind of seeking energy,
Mm.
the rest of humanity.
Okay. So let's go to 3. I think 3 is the star, right?
3 is the performer, is the
Yes.
achiever. Yes, I often call 3 the star of the family. Their type 3s bring hero energy. They bring hope. The holy idea of type 3 is hope. And 3s come to teach us about success, becoming your dream of yourself, just achieving something that means something to you. That let me take that back. Achieving something, if they're highly evolved, achieving gets tied to meaning something personal. When not healthy, type 3 will find out what others value in their society, their community, their family, and they'll become that to the loss of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So 3s are I am because I don't feel. But what happens to 3s is it blocks its own sensitivity to itself, puts it in a compartment, and becomes what it needs to be to get the approval of others.
Mm, okay. Interesting.
And this is what's called deceit in the Enneagram. It's not that, and this really gets mixed up a lot and taught very poorly. It's 3s are not liars, 3s are not deceitful. The deceit is happening inside of the 3 because it loses sensitivity to its own true nature, to its own heart's desire, and becomes what others desire for it. Dad's a doctor, and dad wants me to be a doctor. I become a doctor, even if I hate medicine, you know, or let's say I'm in India and I know a little bit
Yeah.
about tiny bit about the culture, but for a woman to be a beautiful family woman and to have many children, and that's highly approved of. So she
Yeah.
becomes that, even if she doesn't really want kids, So if she's a type 3 in India, she's going to become what will be most approved of. She just will become it. And it's almost like it's like forming an external identity of yourself, like a hologram, and you put yourself into this hologram, and 3s are able to become the hologram for a long time, and they have an amazing sensitivity to the light that comes back in another person's eyes when they're looking at the 3. I'll say, "Oh, that's who I am. Oh, that's who I am." and they're registering the light in another's eyes when they're seen and how they're being seen, and they can literally adjust on the spot. This is why we call them great performers, because they great actors and performers, they're reading the data and they can shift quickly to stay pleasing, to stay approved of, to change their language, to literally change the energy of their body to match someone in order to maintain this level of approval, this level of acceptance, to be
Yeah.
seen as valuable, to be um, to be seen as some kind of success, however success is defined. So success for a woman in India, success for a woman in Japan might be defined two different ways, but the type threes in those societies are going to organize around what is deemed successful outside of themselves.
So where are they finding the animal? Where are they finding the animalistic resolution within them when they do so?
Well, that's the deceit. See, this is the loss of the self. So when you talk to a three and they feel like they have this fear of being an imposter, and they have this fear that if anybody really got to know them, they're it's like there's nobody there. They feel like there's nobody in here. So it's a dislocation of self. My authentic, sensitive, sweet threes are really sensitive, but that sensitivity they get bombarded with everybody else's expectation of them and view of them, and like it's coming at them. This data's coming at them, and they're changing themselves all the time to the point where they kind of go, wow, who am I? If it happens in their lifetime that they get to the point where they say, who am I actually hate medicine. Why did I choose to be a doctor? If they get that moment in their life, they're on their way to reclaiming the authentic, deeply sensitive personhood that lies inside every three. And they learn to manage all the incoming data and the light in other people's eyes, and how they're shining in front of others. They tend to like get sensitive to managing this light coming at them from other people and expectation. And what a very, very evolved type three does, and this again goes back to my studying with Russ Hudson, is that instead of wanting that light on them, and do you see how successful I am? You see how amazing I am? And I'm such a hero and I'm a star. And they take that light shoo, and they turn it on others. And now they motivate and
Uh,
shine light on others with great hope that you too can be anything you want. You too can have the life. And then they become actually the most beautiful, motivating voice of the Enneagram when they turn the light off of themselves and are able through enlightenment, turn it on to others. So gorgeous. Type threes have this incredible ability to hold the light, hold the gaze of other people. You know, some people, if you ask them to stand up in front of a crowd, they kind of get smaller.
yeah,
You put type 3 on a stage, it just it like can hold the light. It can hold the gaze of others. This is why they call them performers.
yeah,
They get bigger. They get more
they get
confident.
bigger.
Yeah, and they glow. There's a radiance to type 3.
Yeah,
That's the gift. That's the natural gift. So the work for type 3 is not to lose their radiance, their hero-like qualities, their sensitivity, but to actually get them to come in and take that dislocated self and put it back where it belongs
mm,
and start to organize. Well, how do you feel?
yeah,
What do you really feel? Not what your dad feels, not what your mom felt, not what society feels. How do you feel? It's hard to get a three into that space. Scary. If I start feeling me and I don't feel all this, I won't be a success. I'll be a nothing. Right.
yeah. Holding the light. So you're saying the difference is when the light is there, they become bigger. Because even I did public speaking and stuff like that, and I like it as well when I'm on stage. I don't think I become
Oh,
like
yeah, you're a
smaller.
7. You have that too, though.
So even so, is that like another kind of harmonic where like this the
Yes,
light holding ability is like a harmonic thing?
yes. 3s, 7s, and 8s are called the assertive types. So they move toward life. Yeah.
Uh,
3, 7, and 8s, yeah,
they
they don't
did,
shrink. They don't
yeah.
shrink. They stand in their power.
Yeah. It's funny. This funny, Uh, so I'm like a graduate assistant right at my university. So I'm like doing this like the first year course of like these kids, like they just joined the university and stuff like that. And like they're not listening or whatever. I'm like, guys, even if you write the correct answer, you will not get the full marks. And everyone is like, what is this guy saying? And I give this like dramatic pause. And then I'm like, because you gotta write the steps and steps carry marks. They're like, oh, okay. And my GA is like, damn, that's like dramatic, man. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I mean, they wouldn't listen otherwise, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
there's your head type at work, right? There's your seeing and filling in what needed to be said and just seeing it right in front of you.
yeah,
Mhm,
yeah, yeah.
mhm,
So it's interesting. So
yeah.
you're saying the journey for type 3 is they first become famous automatically, listen, famous in whatever contextual sense they are
Well,
they
hold on, I'm gonna the desire to be some kind of success it's really in their temperament. I need to become something.
yeah,
Now, fame for some, yes, especially in this modern society, suddenly fame means you're successful.
yeah,
S Yes, so type 3s can get caught in that. But
Instagram models.
it depends on what they set up as their definition of success.
Mm,
And again,
true.
if I'm a mom in India and my
Yeah,
family values big families, I'm gonna become the mom of 9, that's kinda how
yeah,
it works. So but in the United States, young type 3s right now, yes, I'm nobody if I'm not famous. Yeah,
that's the
that's that
clout,
that's that's happening, that is happening. And then we can have type 3s who are they're wired as a type 3, but they're not successful because they've got too much trauma or they've
yeah,
got too much neglect or abuse in their childhood. So they're wired as a type 3, but they can't make anything work because there's too much stress and there's too much trauma. There's too many problems with dysregulation. So it, when someone says, "Well, I'm really successful, I must be a 3." Well, no, it doesn't work like that because you can have a type 3 who's very unsuccessful because
yeah,
of trauma and let's say they're an alcoholic. They're an
yeah,
alcoholic. That's gonna
yeah,
infringe on their ability to be
yeah,
successful even though they're wired as a 3.
yeah.
That make sense?
Yeah. So it's like even if they, but thing is, even if they become successful, now they have to integrate their identity to that image that they have, because the image that they have created is based on what other people value and not what they value. So they have
Yes.
to almost like remold that image to now have an image that not only that other people value, but also that they value themselves. Is that
Well, we
no?
hope we hope that the 3 is valuing it themselves, but that's not the priority.
Yeah.
We hope that the 3 type 3 will get to the point where they actually notice if they value that at all.
So most of the time they don't even like get to that point you're saying?
I wouldn't know if I would say most of the time, but one of the dilemmas, this is the deceit of type 3 is where the deception is to the self. "Oh, I love medicine. I'm gonna become a doctor. My dad's a doctor." And then 40 years later, they're like, "Hate medicine. I wanted to be a painter." But that's not available to them when they're young because they're in the compulsion of type 3. So
Yeah,
they don't not all 3s come to this reckoning. But
yeah,
this is what the Enneagram work is about. It's about bringing 3s home to themselves in a truthful way. It's called veracity. It's called
interesting.
veracity. So the virtue of type 3 is to go from deceiving themselves into becoming the hologram, into the veracity of self, becoming really connected to the authentic inner essence of their true heart's desire. I never wanted to be a doctor, but I always wanted to be a painter or I always wanted to be an actor. But I became a doctor because my dad wanted me to be that, and I did at the time when I was a young man and I'm 18 and I look into my dad's eyes and he says, "Son, you're gonna be a doctor, right?" and he sees the twinkle in dad's eyes of approval, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, dad, absolutely." And at that moment, my
Like a
reward
Disney
system,
movie.
yeah, I'm wired up for it. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I wanna be a doctor because I'm feeding off of my father's approval and expectation." I don't even realize that my dream to be an actor has just gone out the window.
Yeah,
Gone. So, it could take years for me to recover that
yeah,
because I'm so high off the approval. "Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah, dad, yeah." You know, I'm
yeah.
gone. That's what happens. It's not conscious.
I can see now why Enneagram is learned by writers and stuff like that. It sounds like all like an amazing hero's journey that like inspired like a certain group of people, you know?
It is an amazing hero's 9 heroes' journeys.
Yeah, nine heroes' journeys. Yeah,
Yeah,
nine different heroes' journeys.
that's exactly
That
right.
yeah, because when you said that, I'm like that reminded me of a character in a Disney movie, and I'm like, damn, I now understand like where this is coming from. Even there was like one this was like one girl in Dr. Phil, right? I don't know whether you watch that show or not. I get clips sometimes. And this is young girl, and she's like, I want to be famous. It's all about the clout. If I'm not relevant, I'm nobody. And the audience starts laughing, right? Because it's such an absurd idea. But it's like so real to her. And she like gets angry and she gets frustrated and she's like, you catch me outside. How about that? Or something like that, she says. You
Ah,
know, it's like she confronts Dr. Phil. I'm like, now I'm coming to like understand her perspective in
yeah,
life. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
And that's the benefit of this, isn't it? Is we start to
yeah,
realize that we've got 9 different perspectives, and they're very real.
yeah, yeah,
Running my whole central nervous system. They're running my lens of perception. They're running what I came to offer their world. It's organizing what I'm trying to find in the world. We really
yeah.
are different.
That's crazy.
At the same time, we share the human condition.
It's like I think what's common, I think, between all types, at least the way you're saying, is everyone is trying to like. It's like everyone is like a slave to like their animalistic instincts with a desire to be free from them.
Absolutely.
You know,
Well, the desire to be free from them,
maybe seven.
requires a certain enlightenment. It requires a certain uh, desire for personal development, to have more of yourself online, to not be living in compulsions and urges, but to be living with more conscious choice,
Yeah,
to be coming with grace and love rather than compulsions and urges and running away from your shadow material, like your guilt and your shame and your, self
yeah.
recrimination. It really is a different way to be in relationship to yourself and with the world.
But that's such a
Everyone pursues it though, isn't that amazing? Not everyone pursues it.
you know why that is? Because it doesn't make seven, right? Because it doesn't make sense. Because I'm coming to think, I'm thinking, wait, why am I doing the self-improvement thing again? You know? Because it doesn't make sense for me to have more of my stuff online. Because if I really understand what you're doing, it's like a bizarre desire. It doesn't make that much sense, you know? Like I feel to just have like to logically, I'm like, why are you exactly increasing your consciousness? In my head, I just have this belief that, oh, if I increase this consciousness, then I can like get what I want. I'll be able to understand. I can be free. But the desire to be free itself is like an irrational desire, I feel.
Well, and so I just wanna this is, again, so
Yeah.
insightful to you, and when we're younger, especially when we're still in our 20s, we really are running our type at its best capacity
Yeah.
based on how we left childhood, right? None of us leaves childhood without trauma, some kind of
Yeah.
trauma. Some
Yeah.
unmet need happens with every one of us because humans are raising humans and we're fallible creatures, right? And we can't
Yeah.
possibly satisfy every need of our young ones. But in our 20s, we really are running the type and it's working for us. This is what I have been given to have a satisfying life, and I'm going to use it. And becoming
Yeah.
conscious, what does that mean? Um, but at my age, 40 years later, and you go, oh, you start seeing that the compulsions of your type was hurting people,
Yeah.
sabotaged some of your relationships, cost you
Uh,
a job, injured your child, and then you go, okay, I think I need to wake up to these compulsions because now I've lived a few years of damage.
yeah,
You don't know that in your 20s. We
yeah,
don't have that reference part marker in our 20s. We don't know that yet. We don't know that by being type 1, I was hurting people. No clue. No idea that I
yeah,
hurt my brother, my mother, people I worked with. No idea. I was just being my type 1 unconsciously. So it's that wake up. It's the first shock point, to use Gurdjieffian work for a second, the first shock point of your life. Sometimes it's a divorce. Sometimes it's an illness. Sometimes it's you lose a career you wanted. You didn't get the job you wanted. Something kind of, someone sits you down and says, hey, you've really hurt me and I'm leaving you. What?
yeah,
That's the first shock point that wakes us up out of the dream, out of the trance, out of the sleep state of the compulsions of our type. So
that
that
makes
is
sense.
really how it works.
So it seems that the prerequisite to have is like to have like a shock point.
Most of
Is
the time,
most of it.
not all the time.
I
There
think
are,
shock point is just like an awareness that what you're doing and what your animalistic things is telling you to do is actually not what you want, I think. Just the
yeah,
awareness of that.
yeah. When it's working for you, you're
Yeah,
not
okay.
usually in therapy and you're not usually
Uh,
in Enneagram classes, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
So we run our type for as long as we can, as best we can, to cover our trauma, to make ourselves lovable. We run as long as we can, just working compulsively. Gurdjieff called it the sleeping human. You're just asleep. You're just a bunch of impulses and you're just doing them and you're having a good time or a bad time or whatever, but you're just running your type.
yeah,
But if you're lucky enough to have a wake-up call, to get your first shock point, like wakes you up. And you're like, "Oh my god, wait," right? Something that starts the process of self-witnessing.
yeah,
So lucky. That's why people will say, "Cancer was the best thing that ever happened to me.
yeah,
Divorce was the best thing that ever happened to me," because those people actually did the work to learn about themselves and underwent transformation. The ones who don't do that from the first shock point, who don't do the work of self-evaluation, self-witnessing, and the transformation process of the self, the ones that
hmm,
don't do that after a divorce or a disease, they become bitter, more angry, more resentful, more contracted into their compulsions.
that's
And
crazy.
then they suffer worse. We suffer worse when we don't choose a development path. Or we have no idea we're suffering. We're just making everybody around us suffer. And we're not even aware.
Yeah,
I don't know about you, but I'd like to wake up on this side and not have
yeah,
to confront that when I pass over.
yeah. No, no, no. I was just thinking when you said that it seems like a person has inherent goodness. That's what I'm coming to realize.
Hey, as a
That's
type
what.
1, I agree with that 100%.
Sure. Yeah, of course. As a type 7, that's the only possibility I see, obviously.
You're on the 147 with me. You're yes, but to see
Yeah,
the possibility, to see the light and to decide to go toward it
yeah,
is the way I'm wired, is definitely the way you're wired. Fours are wired this way too. We are utopian idealists, and we like to stay away from frustration. We like
yeah.
to manage frustration. Yeah.
No, but it's interesting to me that the shock point is that, oh, I have broken some other person's heart because now I think there's like a weird empathy that they can now feel because they know what it feels like to have their heart broken in their own way, Twos have their thing, threes have their thing. And that
If we
empathy, like,
if we are fortified enough to receive that. So
yeah,
this is exactly why, Prim, a lot of people don't do this work ever, because the moment that shock point hits and you allow yourself to receive how you've actually hurt others, just being your innocent self, running compulsions, when you receive that information for the first time, you've got to have enough ego strength, sense of self to hold yourself in a loving way, in a compassionate way, to tolerate that pain. And this is why
Yeah,
a lot of people don't do this work.
because like they break.
It's like the dark night of the soul.
Yeah,
That moment of really confronting your authentic self means all your potential comes flooding in and all your shadow comes flooding in. And it's scary. I was like that. I hurt you like that. Like, oh my God. It's all reinforcement of how unlovable and wretched I am. Whew. I'd like to avoid that like a plague, right?
you
So
know who talks like that? You know
I
what that
mean,
remind?
you go there, you
Yeah,
go there when you allow yourself to go there and know that you will survive that truth. You see, before we have enough ego strength, before we have enough self-development, we actually do not believe we will survive confronting the parts of us that really aren't working that well.
yeah,
Too terrifying.
yeah,
If that's who I am, who would ever love me is the great fear. So to realize that it's just part of the human condition and to come in contact with our wretched sides of self. I'm using wretched because that's like a
yeah.
type of horror. I'm
Uh,
wretched. So
I don't
to
even know what that means.
wretched is like the most
Disgusting.
dirty, darkest, bad, disgusting thing. Wretched, just wretched human, It's the homeless person who's full of dirt, who's begging, who has no teeth. It's the
Uh,
person that's let themselves go to the bottom. So
uh,
when we can see, yeah, I can be really scolding of people and make them feel awful about themselves. I've done
yeah,
that, type 1, thinking that I was helping them improve. So when we allow ourselves to see that side of a personality that we were operating from compulsion, from urges, from running from our own frustration, our own guilt, our own not enoughness, it's really painful. So you got to hold yourself and yeah, but I'm still here. I'm alive. I'm okay. I can survive seeing that part of me. And now I'm going to integrate it. Now I'm going to own that part of me with compassion. And now that I understand, I can do better. Now I can do better because now I know what I'm trying to do better. Now I know what I've been doing. It was blind to me before. Now it's in my conscious awareness. Now I'm in a state of power. I own that part of me. I don't have to run from it anymore. I don't have to be afraid other people see it. I don't have to get defended when people say, hey, you hurt my feelings. All of that has relaxed because I own that part of my
mm,
fallible self.
that's true.
That's called integration. So now when someone says, wow, Suzanne, you were really mean to me yesterday. And I'll go, my gosh, tell me more about how I was mean to you yesterday. Instead
True.
of, what do you mean I was mean to you? That's ridiculous. You're too sensitive.
Yeah,
The difference,
yeah,
one is an integrated response, one is a defended response. So
yeah,
that's what this work is all about, is owning the shadow of type 7. Now, does everybody have to have a cataclysmic shock point to wake up? Most people, but not all.
yeah.
So, a soul that is leaning toward enlightenment when you're young is like, wow, you're in your
That's
20s.
like the prodigy science. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, wow. We don't need to be hit over the head with a frying pan to learn always. We can choose to We can
Yes.
choose to grow willfully, and it's a beautiful thing to see younger people, taking on this work without having had a
Yeah.
catastrophic event. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. It feels like life hits me with a frying pan every like 6 months.
Well,
That's why
yeah,
I'm in this work. Or else, I feel if I never if life doesn't come after me every 6 months, I don't think I would be in this work. I think I would be in like a musician or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what
Well,
I
life
feel.
is hard.
Uh,
Being on this planet in a meat body, I'm half spiritual, half animal,
Human.
human. I'm this thing is spinning in black space. Nobody can tell me where I really am. I don't know what I mean, think about how crazy it is. So the challenges and the existential threat to survival are every single day.
Yeah.
That's hard enough, right? And so what personal development work is about is cleaning this up so I can handle this.
Hmm.
Clean up this, come to
Hmm.
know this, so I can handle the existential difficulties of a
Hmm.
human life. I can handle it with grace and with love and with purpose and with integrity rather than fear and anger and resentment and bitterness and resistance.
Hmm.
Doesn't the first one sound better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like
I'm contracted in here, when I'm contracted and defended and resistance, I'll tell you everything about a human life gets 10 times harder
yeah.
because the energy is not flowing in me to its potential. Half of my energy is locked up in resistance, bitterness, resentment, jealousy, fear. That's very energy expensive. I need my energy to deal with this world and my place in it.
Do you know who Byron Katie is by any chance?
Yes.
Yeah, because she's what your story that explaining. She also like has very similar story, and
Yes.
she shares it with like a very similar tone of voice as well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I've been to, several of Byron Katie's
So
programs, um,
she's
15 or
like,
so years
oh
ago.
dear, oh honey. Like-
She's pretty emphatic.
Uh, what type do you think she is in Enneagram?
Hard to say.
Is that's crazy. Like, I feel like enlightened people like that are super balanced because they don't freak out at all. The problem.
She had a big shock point in her life.
Yeah,
She
I know.
she was suicidal. That will create a shock point, and all her childhood trauma and everything, she couldn't keep it back.
Yeah.
My suspicion is she's a 3, um, 3,
Oh,
2,
really?
somewhere there. I've met her. I am to type someone from a distance is really hard. Um, that is just my very superficial guess. Um,
Yeah.
and she's married to a Stephen Mitchell who translated the Tao Te Ching. So she's
Oh,
got a
damn.
yeah, so she's got a lot of spiritual support and has learned a lot from this incredible man in her life and went through utter hell to come out of
Yeah.
it, to rework her mind and her intrusive thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah. I know her. So because I think she has a book called Love Waters. I think it's
Mhm.
called.
Loving what
I read
is.
that.
Really.
Yeah. Loving
Yeah.
Waters. Yeah. And I read that book. It's like she's saying her back was like crazy. And the shock point was like this. She fell down and this is some cockroach, like going or something. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, crawling over her foot, and she was so catatonic. She was in such a state of chronic depression, and, you've gotta go back into your and do some trauma work and brain work to decipher what's going on with depression, but,
Yeah.
yeah, she's a beautiful teacher on this planet.
Yeah.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful work. I just looked at the time, I'm like, "Wow!" Of course, you and I always go off on so many wonderful your questions are
Yeah.
incredible. I just wanna tell you, you're
I don't
really
have incredible questions. You just have incredible answers, and just my questions is triggering that part of you. That's about it.
oh, yeah, you really are helping, to access the Enneagram in such a beautiful and incisive way because of your thinking and your inquiry and your curiosity. It's beautiful.
I think. Thank you so much. But I think we like vibe very well together. You know what I mean? I think we have
Yeah.
like a really good rapport. Of course, you're 7. I'm 7. You're 1.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Prem, when
So
we get
yeah,
this The number of people that get married on these triangles is fascinating, or partner together or work together. It makes it so easy. 369-825-147. Those are the harmony triads, object relations triads. How I relate to self, how I relate to others, how I relate to the world. 147-825-369. You see sevens
Yeah,
and fours together often because both are seekers,
interesting.
both are dreamers. Both are pursuing the ideal utopian experience, beauty and fun and love and yeah, 147. That whole triad is utopian, idealism, eliminate frustration.
Mm,
So when I straightened up those shoes, I eliminated my frustration.
yeah.
When you have all these thoughts and possibilities and options, you're releasing frustration, limitation, the frustration of limitation, the frustration of being trapped into one thing.
Mhm. So you know what? We'll just do the four next video if you don't mind, because then we can like talk about four and then talk about the heart type or something, stuff like that.
Okay, we could do
So
that.
we can do that. So guys, we are over the time. We'll catch you up in the next video, next part, which is going to be a heart type and probably head type. I think we speak so much about the head type. I think people must know something about seven by now. I feel. Yeah. Cool.
Well, we'll definitely
Uh,
cover
yeah.
it.